Well, as we await the new executive orders from President Trump, that'll happen any minute now. He also has made his first landmark phone call to Russian President Vladimir Putin since taking office. The Kremlin saying they talked about working together in Syria to target the Islamic State. The two leaders also discussing the process of restoring economic ties between the two countries. But we're told the issue of Russian sanctions or Russian influence in the presidential election did not come up. What did the phone call mean? Naveed Jamali joins us, Reserve Intelligence Officer with the Office of Naval Intelligence, Senior Fellow in the Program on National Security at Foreign Policy Research Institute. Now, Naveed, quickly first, before we get the video of the two orders, what do you expect will come of this, of the phone call with President Putin?
You know, I think, Eric, you're exactly right.
Well, first, let me interrupt you because we do have the, Naveed, I'm sorry, let me interrupt you. We do have the video now of the two new, or perhaps three, new executive orders. Let's listen to what the president says.
Hello. Why don't you move over? Go ahead. I think we have enough room. How are you? So this is a 5-year lobbying ban, and this is all of the people, most of the people standing behind me will not be able to go to work or do anything adverse to our wonderful country. Okay, 5-year ban. It's a 2-year ban now, and it's got full of loopholes. This is a 5-year ban. So you have one last chance to get out. Does anybody want to get out? Good, I had a feeling you were going to say that. This was something, the 5-year ban, that I've been talking about a lot on the campaign trail, and we are now putting it into effect. This is the organization of the National Security Council and the Homeland Security Council. You know pretty much what it represents a lot, and also a lot of efficiency, and I think a lot of additional safety. People have been talking about doing this for a long time, like many years. Okay. Here, Mr. Vice President. This is the plan to defeat the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. In other words, ISIS. I think it's going to be very successful. Okay, that's big stuff. Have a good weekend.
Are you concerned about the reaction to implement the immigration executive order that you issued yesterday?
Totally.
And is it a Muslim ban?
Totally. It's not a Muslim ban, but we were totally prepared. It's working out very nicely. You see it at the airports. You see it all over. It's working out very nicely. And we're going to have a very, very strict ban, and we're going to have extreme vetting, which we should have had in this country for many years. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Guys. Thank you for coming by. Thanks for having us.
Well, there you see the president signing 3 executive orders, also taking one question on his executive order and dealing with refugees from 7 mostly Muslim nations. The president saying it is not a Muslim ban. He also said that it is, quote, working out very nicely. There have been some demonstrations both at Dulles Airport and at JFK, where we were told 12 people were detained this afternoon. One has been freed after the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, filed a lawsuit. Naveed Jamali's been standing by with us. First of all, let's three different executive orders, Naveed. One has to do with lobbyists. I mean, you got that revolving door in Washington where you get a big job at the government and then you go zip right off to K Street, you know, and cash in and make the big bucks. But also dealing with the National Security Council, kind of a reorganization of that in a sense, more active and retired military officers at the NSC. Specifically, we are told to target the Islamic State, dealing with the terrorist threats in the Middle East that this country now faces. And finally, the third that he signed had to do with the Islamic State, asking or directing the Joint Chiefs of Staff to have a report in 30 days on a plan to defeat ISIS. Can you say, from your experience, what do you think could be in that? Special ops, more intense bombing, perhaps, of Raqqa and the other ISIS strongholds. What do you think the Joint Chiefs of Staff could potentially come up with that we don't have now?
It's a great question, Eric. I think it's just to take one step above that. You know, when you think about these types of plans, you have to think of this old acronym known as DIME. Diplomatic, and military and economic, and ideology. So the idea here is that, you know, we're going to focus on the military, but there's another, there's another part of this, which is ISIS really revolves around the fact that we have not come up with a coherent plan as to who is going to fall into the vacuum that will be created once ISIS leaves. We have the Iranians, we have the Russians, we have the Kurds, and we have the Turks, to name a few. And I think the big question here is internationally, you know, look, we have Iran who is not happy about the ban on their citizens, and to a large degree, we're going to require their help, whether it's Iraq or whether it's Syria, and Yemen for that matter. So I think while we can look at this militarily, and look, frankly, ISIS is not long for this world, Eric. I mean, I think militarily we can go in there, we can bomb them, whether it's special forces.
You really think that?
I mean,
you're honest, seriously, because
yes.
they're not just in Raqqa. I mean, they've got the radical
That's right.
Islamic philosophy. I mean, there are guys all over the world, in our country, in Paris. All you have to do is sit next to the computer, get radicalized, and you're off bombing somebody.
That is, thank you for bringing it up. That is actually a great point and a great distinction. When I talk about ISIS, when I talk about the ISIS strongholds in terms of the land that they hold in Syria and Iraq, I should qualify that and say, yes, I do believe that those strongholds are not long for this world. But you're right. The question of ideology is a larger one. When you go to the military, how do we defeat an ideology? And that is going to be a very difficult and nuanced problem. And look, you know, I thought the president did a very good job in his presentation, signing the executive orders, taking the question, very quickly clarifying that this is not a Muslim ban, because as you know, Eric, while actions are important, words do matter. And I think when you're playing an international stage here, and when it comes to combating ideology, part of this undoubtedly is the fact that we are dealing with an enemy who knows very well how to use propaganda. So let's not give him more tools to use against us. And
in terms of, the controversy and the demonstrations against the Muslim ban, do you think it will be successfully challenged or it's going to hold up?
You know, that does sound like there is a legal case there. And again, you know, this question about extreme vetting, this is something that the American public should know that is done today. I mean, you know, before someone even sets foot on a plane or even gets a visa, in many cases, these people are vetted. And I think it's completely reasonable to say, look, if we can't get records from the host country for where you're coming from to determine if you are a threat, we're not going to let you get on a plane, or in fact, we're not going to let anyone from your country get on a plane. Now, that's very, very different from saying we're targeting an ethnicity, a country, or a religion, which clearly is not what the executive order said. So it's very important that the president comes out and clarifies that very specifically. I would have no problem with extreme vetting. I have no. In fact, I would like to see more resources put at this. So I think.
30 seconds left. I misspoke saying a Muslim ban. I meant a Muslim refugee ban from some refugees from some of the mostly Muslim nations. But 30 seconds left. President Putin, I mean, no mention of, we're told, of sanctions, no mention of Russian influence in the election. These things are mostly pro forma. What do you think will come from that phone call?
That's a very interesting point. And very quickly, look, the president has said that he's going to work very closely with Russia to take on ISIS. I asked the question of, will Russia really be a partner? They haven't been up until this point. And frankly, Eric, can Russia really do anything against ISIS? I would suspect that their abilities to help us are pretty limited.
All right, Naveed, thank you so much, and thanks for rolling with the breaking news that we had from the White House.
You got it, Eric.
Of course.